everybody. Welcome to The World This Week. The focus is on Iran, but fighting in Syria intensifies and thousands flee to Europe. In Bangkok, the huge explosion is still a mystery. Concerns about Chinese economy hit hard on financial markets around the world. And what have we learned from the Ashley Madison hack? These are some of the issues we'll touch upon this Sunday. With me this Sunday are Tal Shalev of I-24 News. Hello, Tal.
Hi, Jacob.
And Barbara Paul-Rome, Defense News Bureau Chief here in Israel. Hello, Barbara.
Hello.
Everybody's focused on Iran, the media, the world, even us. But what's happening in Syria?
Jacob, the Bashar al-Assad regime has dipped under the 50% line, control of his country. And Syria, Assad and his Iranian sponsors are pushing back now, and that's what we're seeing. There's a lot of activity. Obviously, we've seen over the weekend what happened on the Golan Heights, the first intentional attack on Israeli territory. Israel responded very, very forcefully, and you can tell the intelligence that Israel has by being able to track what they maintain was the leader of the Iranian Quds force in the Syrian part of the Golan Heights. This is a battle that will become much more ferocious as Bashar Assad and his Iranian patrons need to cling onto their territory, and Israel is not going to sit idly by.
Yeah, Tal, Israel is quick to blame the Iranians and will do so in the future.
Israel is now in the midst of a diplomatic campaign, and in many ways the fact the Israeli Foreign Ministry did appeal with an official démarche to the 6 world powers after the attack from Syria last week. And this is actually just a good sign, a positive sign, that shows that Israel is moving to the day after and not still stuck about on passing the Iran deal, only the agenda of the U.S. Congress. Because by this move, Israel is signaling to the world and reminding the world, okay, you got a deal, but we still have other problems with Iran, which you guys have to take care of.
We have more interviews about the Iranian thing later in the show, but I want to ask you about something that came up over the weekend. Former Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister Ehud Barak more than implied that Israel actually had plans, concrete plans, to attack Iran back in 2010, 11, and 12.
Well, Barak actually revealed 4 Israeli plans to attack Iran between 2009 and 2012. None of them, as we know, actually took place because of military objection, which we already knew about. But also what Barak revealed is that Netanyahu himself was unable to garner support amongst his own ministers. That is something worrying by itself. But the timing of the publication, of course, is always very sensitive because of the very vivid congressional debate. But also, it sheds a light. You know, we've always been asking, did Netanyahu bluff? That has been one of the questions. Was Netanyahu bluffing? Was Israel bluffing? Did it really intend to attack Iran, or was it just using it as leverage to pressure world powers into putting more sanctions? So this account by Barak, first of all, reveals that it wasn't a bluff. And the other question is, to show how each one of the members of this very dramatic scenery and very dramatic movie or telenovela, we might say, has its own accounts of the events. Barak is blaming other cabinet ministers for being afraid to attack Iran. It would be interesting to hear exactly their account of the events. And I guess in 50 years' time or 30 years' time, this whole debacle, the Iran debacle, will probably give a lot of material for historians who will try to understand exactly what was going on.
You know, and it's relevant.
It's Israel. You have 2 politicians, 3 stories. Yeah.
It's relevant to today's debate on the Iran deal because at the center of everything in the backdrop is the credible military threat. And as these tapes reveal, if Barak and the Prime Minister were so intent on exercising Israel's sovereign right to self-defense with a preemptive attack, why is it so difficult to garner a majority in the Security Cabinet? This credible military threat issue is something that it will be at the forefront of the congressional debate, and I think that it weakens Israel's posture in that regard.
Meanwhile, this week, millions of people are worried about another thing, the Ashley Madison hack. Millions of people. Let's see some numbers. Who were there on this Canadian site? Well, it's mostly men. It's mostly married men. There are some singles there. What does it tell you, Tal?
Newsflash, people cheat.
Give me the female perspective, Barbara.
I have to say I'm surprised with these figures because from at least from what we know in Israel, cheating is not confined to men only. Women also cheat much more. They probably just don't do it using their own email address on a public internet server and don't risk it. But the numbers are surprising, I think.
Yeah, like
you render me speechless, Jacob, on this whole story. But the larger issue is that there should be security enhancements and a lot of safeguards, and the hacking issue is a serious issue.
It is. On this happy note, thank you very much, Tal Barbara.
Thank you.
Congressman Peter Roskam, Republican from Illinois, introduced the motion to disapprove the deal with Iran in Congress. He's here in Israel, and Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Whom did you meet here in Israel, and what did they tell you about the Iran deal?
Well, we met with the Prime Minister, we met with members of the opposition, we met with Shimon Peres and Natan Sharansky and a whole host of individuals. The theme was nearly unanimous, and that was a great deal of concern about the Iran deal. It's no surprise that the Prime Minister has been one of the primary voices of warning against it, but it was largely echoed throughout other meetings that we had. And it's an interesting thing because there's a perception sometimes in the United States that this is simply between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu, but of course to come to Israel and meet with members of the elected leadership across the spectrum, there is much concern clearly articulated, and that's a good message for me to be able to take back.
President Obama says effectively that the alternative is a war or a nuclear Iran in a very short while. You don't buy that?
I don't buy that. Look, for 2 years during the course of the negotiations, the Obama administration has been telling the American public and telling the world that no deal is better than a bad deal. And if that's true, if they were willing to walk away from a bad deal, then logically that means that there was an alternative. Similarly, during a briefing with members of Congress, John Kerry said he walked away from the negotiating table 3 different times with the Iranians. And if that was true, that means when he walked away, then there was an alternative. So the administration no longer gets to make the argument that there is no alternative. And so now it is their burden to argue that this is the best deal possible. And clearly, the more that the world looks, the more that the American public looks at this deal, the less favorable the deal actually is. Time is not the friend of this deal. And the proof is some of the things that came out about the secret arrangements between Iran and the IAEA that are so absurd, allowing Iran to literally inspect itself.
Hasn't the Iran issue just become part of American politics? Just another issue for the Republicans to attack President Obama?
No. Look, Senator Schumer, one of President Obama's closest allies in the United States Senate, has said he will not support this. Leading Democratic voices in the House, Congressman Steve Israel, former head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, a loyal Democrat, Nita Lowey, Congressman Sherman from California, all of them allied with the president. They're Democrats, and yet they have come out very clearly against this. So it is too simplistic to say that this is a partisan issue. What President Obama is on the verge of doing is so significant that even key allies and members of his own party who've supported him overwhelmingly on many, many other issues have said, we will not support you on this. You need to stop this, and let's push back from this.
If the next president is Republican, should he or she just ignore this deal altogether?
Well, if the next president is a Republican, then I think that you will see a shift, and you will see a Republican president beginning to reassert influence and trying to move back to make sure that Iran does not become nuclear. Look, there's been a shift in administration policy that has not been well articulated, but it's clearly where we are today. The old way, and what President Obama used to say, was he wanted to make sure that Iran never achieved nuclear power status. Now the administration is saying, let's contain Iran. as a nuclear power. And I think what you will see is a new American president, if it's a Republican that the United States elects. That person will do everything they can to reclaim that effort to make sure that Iran never has the capability of becoming nuclear armed.
Now, even Donald Trump said that he would strictly enforce the deal, but he will keep the contract.
Well, it's going to be part of the presidential debate in 2016, and it will be robustly discussed. I think the more urgent thing right now is in the next several weeks for the United States and American political leadership to push back hard against this deal to see if we can still stop it.
Well, let me ask you about the Trump phenomenon. Is it good for the Republican Party?
Look, part of becoming a nominee of a major party is to show that you've got the capacity to endure a lot of things. So one of the things is we've got 15 or 16, a huge number of people who are running for the Republican nomination, and they're now demonstrating what their capacity is. In the United States, it is a huge enterprise to put together one of those big campaigns. It's a huge enterprise all the way around to try and earn the nomination. So it's a bit of a proving ground. So if you can't handle the nomination, then you can't, if you can't get the nomination, then you can't win the presidency. And if you can't get the nomination and win the presidency, you're not going to be able to handle the mullahs in Iran, and you're not going to be able to handle Vladimir Putin. So part of this is I wouldn't say it's uniquely American, because other countries have robust campaigns, but the scope and scale of a campaign for the American presidency is very, very significant. So we'll see. Sometimes people are what we call a flash in a pan. That means they come and go very, very quickly, and others have the duration and the staying power to endure. So the United States will obviously choose the next president over a year from now, but already these things are being robustly debated.
Yeah, but specifically about Trump, alienating immigrants, Hispanics, this is dangerously, politically dangerous for the Republicans.
I think that most people look at early campaigns, everybody's trying to get their footing, and the Republicans over the next several months are going to be making decisions about who they actually choose to be their standard bearer come next year. So the debate continues, and we'll see if who's able to attract more Republicans all the way around to get the support of the party.
Congressman Roskam, I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
340 rabbis from around the United States have sent a letter to President Obama this week supporting the Iran deal. Among them is Rabbi Charles Feinberg of Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Rabbi, for joining us.
You're welcome.
What made you sign this letter, Rabbi?
Oh, I support the agreement with this agreement to prevent Iran from having nuclear capability, at least for 10 years. I feel that the other option, it seems worse.
And you are satisfied?
And the other option,
yeah.
The other option being that they could develop a weapon in less than a year.
And you are satisfied with the level of inspections and level of enrichment and so forth?
Well, like every agreement, I'm sure there could be some tighter controls, but I think many nuclear and political experts have said that this is one of an agreement that has the tightest verification procedures than any other agreement. I'm sure they could be a little better, but with every agreement, in order to reach it, there has to be some kind of compromise, and the Iranians did make significant compromises as well.
Well, other experts are saying the opposite, so how can you be sure?
Well, yeah, they're saying there could be there could be a better agreement. There could be tighter conditions. I understand that, but this is the agreement we have, and it seems to me very highly unlikely that you're going to get a better agreement.
I'm interested in the process. How did the 340 rabbis came to the same conclusion and signed this letter?
Oh, I think we all received an email inviting us to sign the letter. We saw the letter, and each of us signed it. That's how it happened.
Was there in any way an invitation from the White House to organize this letter?
Well, not directly. They may have been, they may have suggested it to some rabbis, and that's how it started. I'm not privy to that information, but it was organized, at least up front, by several rabbis.
Right. Well, since I assume you and your colleagues do support the existence and the prosperity of the State of Israel, do you find it difficult to be at odds with most Israelis and most Israeli leaders on this issue?
Well, I think we've been at odds with a lot of things with what happens in the State of Israel, I must say. And we do make a distinction between our support for the State of Israel and the people of Israel and a particular government and its policy.
It's more than policy. Most Israelis think that this deal presents an existential threat to this country.
I think the existential threat will be greater if the deal is undermined. I believe that very strongly.
We definitely got the point. Rabbi Feinberg, I thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And this has been The World This Week. We'll see you here next Sunday. Have a great week.